Hey everyone, welcome to the Royce Reports. I'm your host Royce, and here on this channel we talk about Xbox-centric news, reviews, and other gaming-related topics. And today we're going to talk about The Last of Us Part 1 Remake review. Let's get into it. This game has suffered from a lot of controversy as of late due to the fact that a lot of people don't know if this game is really worth or required a remake. A lot of people really didn't know why they decided to make a remake of The Last of Us, which initially came out in 2013 with the PlayStation 3 and ended up getting a remastered for the PlayStation 4. They've even updated that PlayStation 4 version for the PS4 Pro to allow 4K 60. So a lot of people are asking the question, is this remaster, this remake, worth it? A lot of things that we have to discuss is what it means to be a remake. Whenever you look at games like Resident Evil 2 or Final Fantasy VII Remake or Spyro, the Reignited trilogy, Crash, Insane trilogy, Halo Anniversary, and you even look into a more recent type remaster being Mafia, these are all great examples of what a remake should be. And PlayStation themselves have also dabbled in remakes with the Ratchet & Clank remake back in 2014 and with most recently the Demon's Souls remake, which came out 2 years ago. All those games that I just listed are great examples of how a remake should be done. They go and they grab the original game and they keep the story intact and they go and they rebuild it from the ground up, including new visuals, new ways of playing, and adding a lot of features. Now you have other games on the spectrum of how not to do a remake, how not to do a remaster, and those games are going to be Grand Theft Auto 5, Resident Evil 4, and Skyrim. These games come out all the time and they don't really do a whole lot in their upgrades. They just kind of put it out there and expect people to buy it. So where does The Last of Us Part 1 Remake fall? Does it fall with those greats that we listed earlier, or does it fall with the likes of Grand Theft Auto, Resident Evil, and Skyrim? This game kind of falls in the middle. And in order for me to describe what I mean by that, we're going to have to get further into detail about how this game has been handled. So let's talk about the story. This game is one of the best games ever created, and it has won over 200 awards for its story alone, and deservedly so. In fact, it probably deserves even more. This game is very iconic to the PlayStation brand. In fact, this game has probably shifted all of what we see today in the PlayStation category, in the PlayStation library, to what it is because of how successful this game was and how monumental and transformative it was. So a lot of games that PlayStation now produces kind of fall back to that Last of Us type feel. And that's not a negative thing. They're all great games. But this is what started that trend. And it's a great trend to follow. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting where a fungus, a cordyceps, has now transferred to humans and have been able to take over their mind and create a zombie-like infestation. You play as Joel, a hardened, shut-off man who has built walls around himself to protect himself from any sort of emotion. You get tasked with smuggling 14-year-old Elliot across the country to find the Fireflies. The Fireflies being a group of people that are trying to find a cure to the virus that has currently plagued the world. And along the way, Joel and Ellie establish an inseparable bond that ends up allowing Joel to bring those walls down and to actually have something worth fighting for. Along that journey, you're going to be coming across multiple different enemies and multiple different types of infected. The infected, depending on how long they've been infected, have different types. So if they've recently been infected, you're going to have your normal zombie type enemies. They're called runners and stalkers. Runners and stalkers are the type of enemy that's just going to run at you and try to kill you as fast as they can, and you have stalkers who are kind of run and hide around walls and stalk you and try to wait for a right opportunity to strike. And then as the virus starts to take hold, the cordyceps, the fungus, start to produce and come out and show themselves. And with that, you have clickers. Clickers are an enemy type that are blind but use echolocation to find their enemies. And this enemy is probably the most known enemy out of the game. And then the final type is going to be bloaters, which have been the ones that have been infected the longest. And these bloaters are huge walking tanks. In fact, the infected are not the enemy type that you should be worried about. You should be more worried about the survivors, the military, the bandits, the smugglers. These are the ones that are actually truly scary in this setting. Because Joel and Ellie are going through these enemies, they naturally become closer to one another because Joel is fighting to protect Ellie to ensure that he's able to get her to her final destination. So the characters in this game are all unforgettable characters. They all are unique and they are all played very well. And with the added benefit of the PlayStation 5 graphics and the motion capture that they're able to use, the faces are able to show emotion better than they've ever had before. So the acting goes even further in this version of the game. You're able to see subtleties in the way the characters' faces move and react to certain situations. And this is all due to the fact that they did motion capture, and with the graphics on the PlayStation 5 being better than they ever have been for this game, you can finally be able to see those things. Some of the updated character models end up making the characters look a little bit different than what we're normally used to seeing, but I don't really have an issue with that. I think that's fine. It's normal for people to look old in a video game, so that's fine. But with that, they're able to pull out performances from these actors, and you're able to see it and appreciate it even more because of the graphical fidelity of this game. And that only adds to the emotional impact that this game serves. Another character I'd like to talk about is the environment. The environment is a feat in itself. We're able to capture the contrast of the world, the contrast between the infected and the real world, the human side of things. To see the beauty in the rubble and the vegetation and the world taking itself back, and to go from these dark, dank tunnels being chased by infected to going into an open environment and seeing the birds and these animals walk around and having this feeling of hopelessness being raised off of you as you continue through the game is a mesmerable and crazy feat that they're able to accomplish that. And it's all just based off of the environment, the settings that they go through. It is truly amazing that they're able to do that. And with the PS5, it looks better than ever. It's really hard to describe what the feeling is when you finish the game. It's just such a powerful impact that it kind of leaves you speechless in a way. And even though I already know how the game ends, I know how the route is going to go, it still kind of hit me. And the reason being the fact that the PlayStation 5 visuals do add another element of this. So with that, let's get into the gameplay. So the gameplay is going to be your standard third-person over-the-shoulder shooter and stealth game. You are going to rely heavily on stealth, and most of the enemies that you're going to be encountering are either unaware that you're there or are blind, like the clickers. So stealth is a big mechanic in this game, and in fact, you could probably play the whole game stealth. There's other tools that you can use to your advantage. You have weapons that you can use. You have pistols and shotguns and rifles and melee weapons. And there's an upgrade system associated with it where you go to an upgrade bench and you're able to find little pieces of gear to upgrade your tools and have them either perform better by adding scopes or adding extra rounds to your weapons, making it reload faster. There's a lot there to play with. And honestly, you could probably go without upgrading the whole game. Most of the time, a shot to the head is gonna kill somebody, unless it's the clicker type enemies or the bloater. There's really no need to upgrade. Along with that is looting. So you go and you loot a lot of stuff. You'll find different material to use for crafting to create Molotovs or health kits or shivs, or other random things. And a lot of the time you'll be kind of looking around for these things, trying to scrounge around for them so that way you could have all these things in your inventory. I played on normal difficulty and I was always maxed out. I always couldn't pick up any more gear. I couldn't pick up any more ammo because I just kind of mostly used stealth, or if I did get into a combat situation, I would easily get rid of them with a few rounds, and because enemies drop more rounds, I just pick up whatever I ended up using. So I highly recommend not playing this on normal. I highly recommend playing it on either the harder difficulty or grounded, so that way you can actually feel like you're struggling here. I would have so much more gear at the end of a fight, and it honestly make me upset because it's like, well, I could have used that, but I didn't. Why am I not using this stuff when I could find more? But the one thing I did have trouble finding was tape. Tape seems to be the rarest material on Earth for some reason, so you're not going to find a whole lot of it. And tape is very important to making shivs and other tools. So if you find tape, kind of hold on to that for a little bit. With the PlayStation 5 version, the game does feel really smooth. It plays really smooth. I had it at 4K 60 frames per second, and that's how I was enjoying the game. There is other options to have it be focused solely on just 4K or focused solely on trying to target 60 frames per second. Me personally, I'd rather play at 60 frames per second with an unstable 4K than playing at a 4K image with 30 frames per second. There's other things that they've added to the game itself that are different from other versions, which are now game modifiers. They added game modifiers to this, but you can only access those game modifiers after you complete the game once. And this is kind of a way for you to go and replay it. And I think the replay value of this game isn't very strong. If you go and you played it and you beat it, there's no real reason to go back and play it again. And these modifiers, I feel like, don't really add any justification or reason to go back. It's nice that they're there, but I don't know how many people like to speedrun games, but they did add a speedrun counter. They have added cheats to the game, so you could play with infinite ammo, infinite melee, infinite crafting, and they've also added different types of filters to the game. So if you want to play with a no-R type filter, you can do that. They also have a long list of different types of filters to include like sepia tone and like an 8-bit type filter to it. So you can play around with that. But again, you cannot mess with any of that until after you've completed the game. So it kind of sucks that you have to complete the game in order to do that. But if you want to experience it, you can, and it's there. They've also added documentaries and commentary to it, so if you want to experience that, you can as well. But once again, after you beat the game, those will open up. They also included in this package the Left Behind DLC. I am not a fan of the Left Behind DLC. I do not enjoy playing that game. It just is, I just find it boring. I also don't really care too much about Ellie's backstory or how she got to where she is today. That's not something I'm interested in, but it is there if you want to experience that. And even though I don't enjoy it, a lot of people do enjoy it and they like the addition, and it's there for you to enjoy. So there's that as well. So with the PlayStation 5 version of it, I do think it feels better than it ever has been. It's hard to look at videos and see a comparison between the PlayStation 4 version and the PS5 version, because you won't know what it feels like until you have it in your hand. And from me personally, I do think it does feel the best that it's ever felt before. I did come across some instances where there were either the NPCs causing me to get stuck in the environment or not allow me to move. They just kept getting in my way. So there was one instance of having an NPC stuck on a car and them kind of just not moving, but that didn't affect the game whatsoever. I was able to continue normally. I did have a thing happen where I was trying to move one of the pallets to get Ellie to stand on, and she would not jump onto the pallet, and that ended up causing me to reload the recent checkpoint. But the checkpoints are very generous in this game, so I only had to reload like 30 seconds, so it wasn't too bad. That's also something that is kind of weird, is that they don't really add anything. There's nothing new to this experience. It's just all of the same stuff that you already know and have already played. It's just now it runs better. Something that I don't like is the instances of trying to get Ellie to stand on a pallet and then move the pallet. They make jokes about it in the game about how they do it multiple times, but it gets kind of annoying having to do it so often. And I wish that they would have just did it maybe once or twice and kind of got away with it, or maybe go back in this remake and edit some of it out, or have a scene where Joel's teaching her how to swim or something. But that's still in there and it's still kind of annoying. Another thing I want to touch on is the collectibles. The collectibles in this game is exactly how you should do collectibles. It is fun to go and try to find everything because it adds to the world building. So there's minor story arcs in the game that can be told through you finding some handwritten letters or notes, or just even the visual cues that are going on in the world. You're able to understand what's happening, and it makes me want to go and find all of these things and see what it was like, what these people were thinking during the end of the world. And the collectibles nowadays in games are just kind of there just to be there to kind of add gameplay value to the games. But these ones are done in a way that I think every other game should do if they are going to do collectibles. Not have these orbs you have to collect or something. But one of the collectibles that I don't like finding are the firefly pendants. These things are just kind of all over the place and are annoying, and I don't really care too much about. And I wish they would have gotten rid of them. Because those collectibles do suck. The companions that follow you in the game are beneficial to you. They will attack people, they will call out enemies, and they will stealth whenever you stealth, which is awesome, which is great. I feel like they don't do it enough. It's just kind of, I know I don't want them to play the game for me, but there's times where I'm getting attacked by multiple people and the NPCs are just kind of standing there not really doing anything. Or in the case of stealth, I'd be stealth and my characters would be stealth as well, and the NPCs that are looking for us will have the characters that are with me in their line of sight but not see them, and so it kind of pulls you out of the moment a little bit. But I feel like they said that they made it better, but they really didn't do a whole lot. Also, a feature that's on by default that I think everybody should turn off is the film grain. For some reason, they have a large amount of film grain in this game. Immediately, I went to the settings and turned that off, just because it is distracting. It doesn't give it a clean look. It kind of, I understand that they're trying to go for a filmic vibe and they want you to feel as if you're watching a movie, which is exactly how it feels even without the film grain. It's a very cinematic game. So just FYI, that's on there, and if it was me, I'd take that off. It's distracting and kind of bizarre. And not just with the film grain, they also ramp up motion blur. So whenever you're playing the game, it adds that kind of blur to it to kind of give it that more cinematic feeling, I recommend also lowering that, because it just will look better. And if you are prone to motion sickness, then I feel like that can help you out with that. So people that are interested in being trophy hunters or are interested in the trophies, this game's trophies are actually pretty easy. They are your typical collect all the collectibles, do these random onesie twosie things, beat the game, all that stuff. So if you want to achieve a platinum for this game, it's relatively easy. And if you want to get all the collectibles, just watch a guide, and there's many out there that will show you how and where to collect everything. So when it comes down to the audio of the game sounds phenomenal. I was using the PlayStation 5 specific headphones that they came out with a couple years ago, and that changed my experience. I was playing on my TV and just using my surround sound, and there was instances where I couldn't hear anybody running up behind me or to my right or left, and that caused me to die a couple of times because I just didn't have any situational awareness. And the only way I would know if someone was running up on my side was if Ellie or someone else ended up calling out and telling me. And I don't know if that's by design that way, to where you can't hear them running up at you, but once I had the headphones on, I was able to pretty much hear everything, and it made it a lot easier to have that 3D audio and experience. So I definitely recommend playing on a higher volume, or if you have neighbors and don't want to offend them, then get some headphones and use some headphones for it. Lastly, I want to talk about the controller, the added vibrations and feedback that the PlayStation 5 is now touting as the go-to feature, the way to play these games. Honestly, it was kind of lackluster. The game started off, and I don't know if it was my controller or if it was the game itself, but everything I did would, in the cutscenes, would cause the controller to vibrate. It would just be sitting on the couch, vibration. Someone touching me, vibration. Getting up, vibration. Walking around, vibration. There was a vibration for every single thing that you did in the cutscene, and it was honestly kind of annoying. But what's weird is that was only in like the first cutscene, and after that, I didn't really feel it anymore. It's like they just did away with it after that one cutscene. They do have multiple features involving the DualSense that you could go into the menus and change. So you can go into the settings and change a lot of what the default settings are for the DualSense. And one of them that's actually off by default is the talking and feeling the vibrations of the voices through your controller. And this is supposed to add a sensation of how the actors are delivering these lines and feeling the intensity of the lines. I tried it and I did not like that feature. I ended up turning it off. Another feature are the adaptive triggers. Those do have some feedback to them on certain weapons. When you pull the weapon back, you'll feel a little pull back on the trigger. For the bow and arrow, you'll feel the pull of the bow. Other than that, they don't really do a whole lot. There's not really any useful feel to them. Other than that, they just feel very lackluster, and I wish they would have had a different feel for every single weapon, but that's not the case. All the weapons feel the same besides the bow. And something else is swap over to a different weapon, and Joel puts the weapon in his holster. You'll feel a click on the trigger to signify that he put his weapon away. I don't know what that's for or why that's there, but it just feels kind of weird. And especially since you're not pulling the trigger, you don't really feel it. You could just hear it and feel a slight rumble, which is kind of useless. And the weather effects, if it's raining or snowing or windy, whatever it may be, you might feel a slight vibration in the controller. The rain effects were really done very well, where you could feel the little pitter patter on your controller, and it felt actually kind of cool. But I was hoping for an Astro's Playroom type feel to the controller. I know that Astro's Playroom was designed to show you what the possibilities are of the controller, but the fact that this game, The Last of Us, probably the most well-known PlayStation IP, isn't utilizing the controller in the same way that Astro's did, kind of shows me and tells me that if PlayStation isn't investing too much in this thing, in this piece of hardware that is supposed to be game changing, then why should third-party developers even try to utilize it? So it just seems kind of lackluster and honestly not very noticeable. They did get rid of the noises that came through from the PlayStation 4 DualShock. If you turned on your light, it would click through the controller. They got rid of that, thank God, because it was honestly annoying. Now it just clicks and that's it. But a feature that I did think that was pretty cool for the PlayStation 5 controller was a moment at the beginning, and it happens throughout the game. Whenever you start a generator, the generator, the feel of it, as I walked towards it, I could feel the vibration that the generator was giving off in my hands, and the intensity of the vibration would increase the closer I got to it. And as I would turn away and face a different direction, the vibration on the controller would shift to that side of whatever side that I was facing towards the generator was on. And I thought that was pretty cool. That was something that happened throughout the game, because you do deal with generators sporadically, but that was probably the best use of the controller in this game. So is this game worth $70?
Oh, I'm sure she did.
Hey, fuck you, man. I didn't ask for this.
Me neither.
$70 for a game that has been released on its third time and is actually taking content away. They don't have a multiplayer feature that they had in the PlayStation 3 and 4 version of The Last of Us, and they're charging more for it. I mean, you do get Left Behind DLC associated with it, attached to it, which is a plus, but that was also given to you in the PlayStation 4 version. It's kind of hard to really say whether or not this game is worth $70. And I have to break it up into like kind of different ways. So if you are brand new, never played The Last of Us Part 1, and you are brand new to the PlayStation 5 ecosystem, and you have a 4K 60 TV or monitor, then I do think this game is worth $70. I think you should go and play right now because of how great this game is. It is a perfect game. It's a 10 out of 10, and everyone should play this game at one point in their life. Now, if you're a hardcore fan, it doesn't really matter what I'll say about it. I think you're going to go and get it anyway, so might as well just go and get it. Now, for everybody else, I don't think this game is worth $70. Me, who I've played this game 4 times already, did not see any major difference to warrant the $70 price point. In fact, I think they should have charged $40 for it. And if they charged $40, I'd be telling you it's not worth $40. It's worth $25 on a sale. So I don't think you should pick this game up. I don't think there's any massive improvements to it. And they even offer less for your buck. So with that, I think you should just stay away from the game unless you have never experienced it or are a hardcore fan. And with that, that's The Last of Us Part 1 Remake review. And if you liked what you saw and you'd like to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you think that I'm being too harsh on the game, please drop a comment, let me know. Maybe I am being too harsh. Maybe I'm just jaded by the fact that they've released it so many times. But with that, I'll be seeing you next time. And remember, take it easy.